So we will start with a brief introduction of our smart contracts and the way to actually conduct a token sale and how this thing works and from a technical point of view, for you to have a glimpse of how it is actually to run a token sale. You're of course free to ask any type of questions you want, and that's actually the goal of it, right? And then we will follow that with a small, short panel with Fedor and Jean-Marc Seigneur and myself to answer pretty much all the questions you guys might have. We also have our moderator, Jan, who has some questions to actually start the discussions. But of course, you're always free to interrupt and ask questions, raise your hand, and you're more than welcome to actually ask as much question as you want. That's the goal of it tonight. So we will mostly cover the legal and compliance aspect around security tokens. This is where we believe we have a lot to share with you guys. And yeah, so let's start, let's begin. And I give the mic now to Cyril, who is going to introduce you to the wonderful world of Mt Pelerin.
Thanks a lot, Arnaud. Okay, no more. Okay, we have the screen back. So I don't need the full screen for myself because we're gonna code. So how many of you are afraid of source codes? Oh, no one. Excellent, excellent. So yes, it's a bridge between worlds that you already know if you were there tonight. So we're gonna look behind the Mt Pelerin token sale because you must probably either be already shareholders or you're going to be shareholders by the end of this evening. So let's show you what you are the owner of as a shareholder. So what's behind a token sale? Well, smart contract. You have so smart contract. You stop me or you raise your hand if you're not familiar with something I say. You ask me the question. You just cut me in the middle. So it's a blockchain software. It's pretty much like apps on your mobile, to be very simplified. And there is two places where you can find the definition of smart contract. It's either on GitHub. GitHub it's the place for source code. In particular, you have a smart contract. So us is on the on this link. So I think this slide will make available to everyone if you're interested to look further after this presentation. So there's two places you can find the code, either on GitHub, or a very interesting place is also Etherscan for Ethereum smart contracts. So I've put two links. One is Rabstan Etherscan, and one is just Etherscan. So Rabstan is the demo test environment. For the token sale, be aware that you should invest in Etherscan, because if you invest in Rabstan, then you will invest in something that's not the shell, something that can be something different. So important to really be curious about the difference between Rabstan and Etherscan. So for example, if I click on the link, I go there. Ooh. So this Etherscan is a blockchain explorer. It shows you information about the blockchain. You have the last block, which was 14 seconds ago. You have the power, you have difficulty, you have a lot of information. And you see that transactions are coming and are talking. Well, you're familiar with blockchain, I think, already. And they put it into blocks, and you can see the detail of transaction on the other side. I will come back later on, but I'll introduce you the first segment. And then you have GitHub. That's where you have the source code. So it's developer-oriented things, IT guys, but you can pretty much quickly read it. It doesn't require a lot of skills. You know that contract and contracts, and then you have all the contract in this directory. But I will come back because there's a lot of things into it. So what's a token sale, or at least all token sale made of? So we have a token. Obviously, we're selling a token, so we have a token. It's called Mt Pelerin share. The symbol is MPS. You have also a token sale, which is a contract which defines how do we sell these tokens. You have a user registry because the token is free to transfer, But to participate in the token sale, you need to be registered. You need to be KYC before. You also need, if you're investing, you can invest in the token sale either in Swiss franc or in Ether. If you invest in Swiss franc, it's straightforward because the shares are sold in Swiss franc, so you don't have any conversion. But if you invest in Ether, you will need to convert within the contract into Swiss franc, so you can buy tokens directly from Ether. So I will explain more about that later. And then you have rules, transferability rules, which allow us to enforce regulations, which basically are made of two rules currently. One is the freeze rule, which we never had to use, and you will be able to check that we never used it. And you have the lock rule, which we are using currently. I will detail more, because during the sale we don't want everyone going around with the tokens, so we lock during the sale the tokens. So the first part is the MPS token. So this is the address of the token, and this is the token on Etherscan. So I can have a look directly. You can see that Etherscan displays you quite some information. First, it displays you the total supply, so it's 10 million, exactly like in the white paper. The price in Ether is not listed yet, so there is no official public price. There's just the sale price. You can see that there is already 530 addresses, which are holders, and there have been 911 transfers. So that's a funny number. Huh? So now we can look below. There's even more information. So here you can see the transfers. So you can see that mostly every day you have some transfer going on with some quantity associated with that. You can check the older addresses, and you can see that, for example, there is 95%, which is owned by Smart Execution right now, and then this was 5%. It was because a lot have been sold already, but we'll come back later on that. And below are the investors that did invest into Mont Pelerin already. Probably your address is there as well. So we have nothing on this tab. Then on read contract you have information which allow you to interact, to read data from the contract. So you see the total supply, for example. You can check the total sent amount that has been sent by that address, and other information. So I don't go into all this information because there is a lot. I will maybe come back a bit later at the end of the presentation if you have time. But for now, I'll let you look by yourself what's inside. And then you have the possibility to change the contract, except you find a bug in the contract which are highly doubt. You won't be able to do much things that you're not allowed. So except if you own tokens and you are allowed to transfer them, there is not much you will be able to do. But you can look what we can do at Mont Pelerin with the tokens. So, and you can also look, so the token is a contract, so you can also look at the contract page. And on the contract page you have more interesting information because you have the codes available. So it's the same as in the GitHub as I mentioned, so you can double check that it goes well. And Etherscan is a third party, so it doesn't belong to Mont Pelerin. And they check that the source code, it's exactly the same as the one that is found on the blockchain. So he tried to compile it and check that it really matches the one that's on blockchain. So the source code you see it is exactly the one that's been compiled and executed on the blockchain. You even see the same compiler information, optimization. You see a lot of information about these tokens. Just to have a quick look what the token looks like. So basically a token, as I say, is a contract. And there's two things on a very basic level on the token, and ERC20, there is two important things. There is a total supply, which is 10 million for us. And then there is this map, so it's like an Excel sheet of address with balances associated with that. So a token is just an Excel sheet with balance and for each addresses. All token is much more complex than that, but I don't have time to go into all the detail. We have decimals, which is 1, because it's the shares. We have a set of transfer rules, which I go later, a bit more detail. And you can also have claims, such as dividends and voting rights, which can be associated. We have not yet published on-chain the claims associated with the token. It's on the GitHub if you want to check anyway. But you can see already the way the claims will work. So on most of the token, all the competitors, the way they allow you to vote and participate in any scenario, it's you have to transfer the tokens. But because those are shares, you can't lose because you vote, you should not lose the rights of holding the tokens. So we have an inventive and innovative mechanism inside, which keep track of, at any time in the time, keep track of how much token you had at a point in time. So if we make a vote right now, you can still transfer your token exactly as you want, and there will be a track generated on chain that allow the voting and the dividends to check the balance previously in the past. So it's a quite complex mechanism. I'm not going further tonight on this detail, but you can have more detail on the GitHub. So I mentioned there is 2 rules. There is a lock rule and the freeze rule. So freeze rule allows us to block a transfer for a certain person. If we have someone from a legal side that come to us and say, you have to freeze that asset because he has participated in some activity, fraudulent activities. So I said just before that we never used it. Let's check that. So there is only 2 operations that have been made on this freeze rule. The first one is a contract creation. So it's not a big deal because we just created the contract. The same as the source code is defined there. And then we have run rules, run things. So let's have a look what it did. So you have the event logs. You can check that there was an authority defined. So basically what we did is we decided which address will be authorized to freeze someone. So you can check the address here. So this is the address which has been allowed to freeze someone. So you know that this person, this kind of authority, can I do that? Yes. So we've named it, it's an operator right now. We envision that the signature should be given to the authority itself in the end. For now we will execute on behalf, but in the end we want every authority to have his own signature, so you can make them accountable for the decision they make. And then you have the locking rule. So the locking rule is much simpler. Well, it's not much simpler. In fact, it's a bit more complex. How does it work? So basically, you say that, so you create the contract, first transaction. Then on the second transaction, what you do is that you define who is allowed to do the operation. So same things, you have an operator for this operation. The third transaction, what you do is you lock the definition of a beginning and an end date, and if it's within the schedule or outside the schedule you defined, that is locked. So basically, is it unlocked inside the schedule or locked inside the schedule? So we can check that there is a number here and there. So those are timestamp. It's second since the 1st January 1970, which is the universal way computer manage dates, basically. The first element is restriction. So it's if it's sent, received, or both. So here it's a 2. If you were to look in the code, maybe you can go quickly. It will say that we prevent anyone from sending. So you can't send right now. It's configured. Yes, number 2, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. So send is configured. There was a question?
Yeah, I have a question. How can you do a partial freeze? For example, some specific token holders could only sell, for example, 25% of their position in the first 6 months, and 25 and 25 and 25. For example, if you configure a partial freeze,
So,
where it unlocks at specific dates, for some shareholders.
So right now there is two mechanisms, which is one is the freeze, which means to freeze just one token for that address, prevent any transfer from that address, which is made for more legal reason, and the other one which is more generic for operational reason, which is a lock mechanism. But in fact the token itself, it's a rule engine. So there is true rule plugged. Basically, with Laura, we haven't had this issue. We created the wrong rules. So sometimes I'm stupid, and sorry guys, and I created a lock rule. But I locked everything for everyone, which is quite embarrassing for a token sale, because you can buy the token, but you can't send it to the buyer. So because the token is very flexible and configurable, we were able to disengage or remove the bugged rule and instead plug the right rules that was fixing. So to solve the concern, this concern you're mentioning, it would be quite easy to define the new rules in, let's say, 1 week, and to be able to plug it within the token frameworks. So it's very flexible, and that's something very easy to do in the end. There is even an EIP for this rule mechanism. So I don't know if you're familiar with the EIP. You're probably familiar with the ERC20. So ERC20, it's the EIP 20. And for this mechanism we've designed and built, there is a ERC 1592, which is in preparation right now. So maybe one day it will become a standard as well. So there is one more transaction, if we stay on the locking mechanism, and this transaction, it's defined exceptions. So right now we locked everyone from sending the tokens, but as I said, we need exceptions for the token sale and for other things. So right now we have two exceptions defined. So one, this should be the token sale, I think. The 0.95 should be the token sale. This one
is the wallet. The first one is the wallet.
Oh, it's the wallet. Yes, because the token sale is sending, but it doesn't have the token. It's taking them from the wallet. So yes, it's very explicit, and you can retrieve every information that we said. You can challenge it and see on the blockchain that we really do as we say clearly we will do it. And then you have the token cell. Let's close it. There's many windows. So we have the token cell. So the token cell is a contract that where you can send your Ether, or where Mt Pelerin can push the information regarding the fiat payment received on the Mt Pelerin bank account. And that's where we can see what transaction happened in the token cell. There is a little glitch on the scan because it's a token tracker. So this happens because the token cell has an attribute which called token, which references the token that's part of the token cell. But the token we have, the content of the token, is an address. It's the address of the MPS token, and it is can interpreted as a ASCII UTF-8 character. So it makes this weird behavior, but it's just the address behind, and that has been converted into a random character string. So you have the source code if you want to check the source code of the token cell, and you have information regarding the cell. So let's quickly have a look at some interesting value. Oh, raise CHF. Interesting. Oops. So raise CHF. Interesting. So we can see which how much CHF has been raised. Then you can look below. Many information. Raise ETH. So this is in way. So you have to convert them in Ether. So it's 10 power of 18. One way, one Ether is 10 power of 18 way. The total raise CHF again. It's twice the same value. Interesting. So you have the information. You have also the rates provided in the user registry. So as I say, you need the rates to convert ETH to CHF, and you need the user registry to know which one has been whitelisted. Which other information? Oh, you have this information. So basically, it's a share purchase agreement that you have signed or you will sign soon. We've made a hash of it, and if you were to make the hash on your side as well, you should get the same share purchase agreement that you have on your side. So it should confirm that you sign the same share purchase agreement as any other participants. Because you can challenge that we didn't have to make something specific for you that will not match the hash. So you have the base price, which is 5 francs, you can see there. And you have obviously the token that we already checked. So let's go back to our presentation. So yes, you have this several components, other smart contracts which are linked. And but now you probably agree that it has become a bit more complex, too complex to be easy to track. You need some expertise, maybe technical expertise. So we've made a dashboard that just get the same information, but at least easy to follow. So you can see that how much we raised, when the date will be, without having to convert them from a timestamp to readable dates. So it's basically it's the 15th December, 10 days. So don't wait. And then you have the what we raised so far and the remaining supply. You remember the remaining supply that I said on the second address? It was this amount, exactly the same amount. So now you can quickly check on the token cell that is correctly matched. And if you have the hook, then you can dig further into SSCAN to look and understand what's went wrong. So we have a user registry as well, as I said. So we can double check on the SSCAN. So it's very not practical. So you have the code as well, and maybe events can be readable. Let's check. You have 35. Okay, so events are not so much readable. You can challenge with the read contracts. So you can see that there is 229 user defined in this registry so far. If you were to put your address there, you will be able to retrieve your user ID in this 229. You can also check that your user is valid. And you can check that the address has been confirmed, that the user is not suspending. So for example, if we put an ID, it gives you not suspended, false, which is good. You can. I will let you also check if you want more on SSCAN. But because you're not all tech, we have made a dashboard. You can check the user registry directly on the dashboard. How many cells, token cells, have you seen that give you access to their admin console? How many of them? And they say it's blockchain. They say it's blockchain. So if it's blockchain, it should be transparent. So it doesn't matter if you get access to the admin console because it's on-chain. So hopefully I don't have any invalid suspended, which is good for me. We had some review pending, maybe you saw them. a few weeks ago, or a few days ago. I don't remember exactly when they were fixed, but that's what it's made for. So you review and you challenge the KYC, the AML, and you're good to go. And then you have also how much we invested. So we have 131 shareholders and 98 whitelisted. So if you're the whitelisted, hurry up. So you can have a filter if you want to look and dig further and see what's on the list. So we speak about the user registry. Let's have a look at the rate provider. So you have it on Etherscan. Let's go quickly for the sake of doing it. It's not even readable as well. Do we have events? Yes, we have events. So you can see the rates every day or so. So it was 6 hours. So every day around noon, you should have it. Basically, the first is the number, which is a timestamp, which is a date, and the second is a number as well. So it's a tricky number. It's a rate, but it's not like the typical ETH CHF you use to have. It's inverted, and it's not in ETH, it's in the whale. The reason why I did so is because you can't have fractional number on Ethereum. So if I were to have the rate that go down below 1, I will get there 0. And also I lack precision. I really lack precisions. So by inverting in the other way and converting ETH to A, which is 10 power of 18, you get a big number, which is an integer, which is without any decimals parts. And it's much more practical in terms of usage for computer and much more precise as well. But because you're not very at ease with that, you can do the formula, so just weigh CHF so you can convert them, or you can just look on the dashboard. And then you see the rates, and you see the dates, the timestamp when it was modified. So sometimes I'm doing it every day, so sometimes I just forgot and I say, oh, I forgot it has to be done. And sometimes also I make mistakes. But luckily I'm aware of the consequences for you guys as investors, so usually it's quickly fixed. So it took me like 15 minutes time. In blockchain time, it's 2 transactions, because blockchain is quite slow. But it was quickly fixed. Basically, usually it's decimal number that you forgot to put or something like that, and it just gives a very wide number, and the dashboard analyze and check that the value is correct. Anyway. So let's do a quick demo. So we have our CEO. Where is your CEO? Oh, she's there. So she's just calling me now and said, oh, we have received a payment of chain. Perfect. So I have to, I will try with one hand. But usually I do that with 2 hands, because it's important matter, it's raw money. So we're gonna do that. So it's not really a demo, it's a real payment. So let's double check again. Let's double check again. Okay, let's close the root up. So we have 147,289 MPS. So to show that this is real, we're gonna do the payments. So I have my console. Let me log on the mainnet. So I'm logging with a restricted address, that an address that doesn't have all the power. So even if it gets compromised, you won't be able to go very far, because I only have very limited access to the tokens. So I can't change the rules, I can't freeze your address, there's a lot of things I can't do. So now what we need to define, we need to, I don't know if it's, do you see it correctly? Maybe I should change the color, maybe, or the fonts. Let me quickly change that. Appearance, change. Let's put 12, 14 maybe. Where is the color? Where is the color? Maybe in session, login. I can put a more light. Should I change the something more flashy? Sorry?
Green. Green like matrix.
It's your eyes. I'm looking at you guys, it's your eyes.
Yeah, good.
It's a nice green. It's a nice green. No worries. So let's, can I clear like that? I never cleared. No, okay, I can't clear. I will clear like that. So I need to get my token cell contracts. So let's get back to the token cell address. So I can get this exactly like that. So this, I'm using the code that's available on GitHub, so you could try to play with it. You not authorize, because you don't have the private key that goes with it, but you could still have fun and already read some data and check that things are working as described. So I'm loading, as I said. I'm loading the token cell. Perfect. So I can check, for example, that's the raised. What can I check? Okay. It's a web connection. It looks fine. So this is all the operation I can do. So in particular, the one that we're going to use. So you find the same operation that you have on the dashboard, on the scan anyway. The one we're going to use is off-chain investment. We're going to have 3,500, which is an off-chain investment. There's a ability to pause, there is ability to... there is even a hidden feature, so if you were, you could accept the share purchase agreement on chain. We never ask you to do that because it's a bit complex, but the feature is there if you were interested to play with it. I think we should organize a prize for the first guy to sign the SPA on chain. Well, I'll let the marketing guy to define that, but there is an Easter egg basically in this contract. So what we want to do is add off-chain investments. So let's do like that. So I'm doing with one end, which is not as practical as I would like. So the first thing you should do when you do a transaction on chain is evaluate the cost in gas before running it, because evaluating the cost in gas allows you to check that first your transaction is working. And it will tell you how much gas. So if you see too much gas, maybe I typed something wrong. Maybe it's not correct. So you can challenge at what you're going to do, how much it's going to cost you. So then we say we need to pass the address of this person. So maybe it's one of you guys. I don't know who is it. So as you can see, we have a separation of concern within Mt Pelerin. So although I do the transaction on chain, I never do who is behind. And the same go for Jean. She probably did the KYC, the video recording with you. Some of you guys, not everyone, but some of you guys probably did it. And she knows you, but she never do the operation on chain. So we have a separation of concern, which, like any back office in banks, secure the platform. So we said 300,000. That's what he said. And I had 20, because I said blockchain doesn't like decimals. So I write always, there is no Swiss franc, there's only cents. Only Swiss franc cents on chain. So it's always 2 decimal, but I double check every time that is the correct. And that is sufficient. But then I need to pass some parameters. I need to pass how much gas do I expect to cost. I expect 300,000. And then I set the gas price. So usually the first time, I randomly put 5 gigawatt. I will tell you, I will not execute with 5 gigawatt, but for challenging the gas price, this is enough to check the query. And then I just estimate the gas. Expected number, demo effects.
Convert the GUI.
Oh, I know. No, I know. I know. Syntax error. Oops. Check.
Yeah, that's.
And this you have to
That's what I
convert
wrote.
to way. Because he take way, which is 10 power 18 way liter, and a gigaway just 10 power 9 liter. So the gas price, you don't say it in liter because it will cost you an insanely amount of money, or tiny numbers. You say it in gwei. So it's much smaller granularity. So now we have the exact gas number. So the gas tell you the complexity of your operation. The more complex the operation is, the more gas cost. So I usually do that. Oops, sorry. And I have the perfect number of gas. So if ever it fails, I will not pay more than that. But there is no reason to fail because we estimate. Now, the second part is I need to estimate exactly. Oops. Yes. Good. I need to estimate exactly the current price of the gas solution. So I go to on the website. You can have it on Etherscan as well. So if you look on the main page, usually it tells you the gas price. I'm not sure where you say it, but there is a place where you say it. Gas used. No. So it's maybe on the level above. Or it's blocks. Average gas price. You can have it here. The problem is that it doesn't tell you a trend, and it doesn't predict very well the future block gas price. Where the gas station is quite good at predicting, and they even give you insights here, which gas price you should take. So I don't recommend to put the fast, except it's really a big amount and you don't care about the gas price anyway. But usually you don't care about you're not going to use fast. And also it's a bad behavior, bad community behavior, because if everyone uses the fast, then we'll just go very high. And it will cost much more. It's good incentive for the miners. If you want the miner ecosystem to develop, just put more gas. But usually I would recommend you to do the standard, or rather if you really want to go slowly, you can use the safe route. So I will just use the standard for the demo. So it's 7. Let's refresh one time because it's moved constantly. Okay, 7.1. I will put 7.5 because I don't want to wait forever. And I need to remove the estimate gas now. Now I'm ready to do it. So no one recognizes this address? Let's do something just before. Oh, I will do that, execute the transaction. At the same time, I will go on the dashboard. So if I go rates, that's not the rate that I wanted to see. I wanted to go on the token cell parts. I will go there to see what's happening. And we have a pending transaction, you can see there, which is there. Expecting 9 minutes, but it will depend, it can go next block, we never know. And I can give me some time to show you that I can look up which person is it. So this only look on the blockchain. That is fully transparent, exactly the same as blockchain. So we know that it's ID 219. We know that this person has never contributed and never bought any token. Our allowance within the current KYC limit is 300 tokens. And invested. I did the number that I have put already in it? No. Because there is no token above. What does invested says?
Maybe the transaction went through in the meantime.
No, because it's a token 0. Allowance.
Yeah.
So the token allowance. So we have to look on the we're lucky we have the country. Oh, it's confirmed. It's confirmed. But this is the funny things of blockchain. You know what happens? When the page loaded, it was not done. when he checked for the token, it was not done. When he checked for the allowance, it was not done. But it's refreshed now. It has refreshed. But when it was not done, and when he looked for investing, it was done. So at the same time in concurrency, things happen. That's why we didn't have a consistent view. But now it's synchronized, so it's refreshed, and it's 700, which is good because the allowance allow you 1,000 tokens. So it was strange for me to see only 300s and 0 token both. So we know that when you check the allowance, it was already, the transaction went already through. Thank you a lot, Laura, for identifying this weird or strange behavior. So blockchain is not instantaneous, there's always some times. As you saw, it took a few seconds to execute. And this person has already have 700 MPS, exactly the same that you can see here. And if I go by there is how much I said?
700.
Yes, 700 tokens less than it was before.
But he's lucky.
So for me, it's at the end. So maybe you can become an shareholder.
Thank you very much, Cyril. So what you just witnessed here is just a quick glimpse of what we call the bridge protocol. The bridge protocol is actually a framework to issue security tokens in a compliant way. And here he mainly showed you the smart contract for the token sale itself and how it works if you run it fully on-chain. If you have a full smart contract that manages for you the token sale and where basically the contributors get their token back immediately after contributing. So I think that was interesting to see that from the IT perspective what it involved in real to actually participate in the token sale from the back office, let's say, perspective. So now I guess we will start the quick panel where we are inviting Fedor Poskriakov. Fedor is one of our trusted and who was also a game changer in everything we did. He works for Lenz Staehelin, the very famous law firm, but also he was at the origin of the CMTA, the Capital Market and Technology Association, that is basically has the mandate to bring a standard for Switzerland to issue security tokens in a proper way, and so that future companies that want to do the same can follow the simple guidelines that they were publishing for free for anyone to read. We are super proud to be part of this association. And then there is Jean-Marc Seigneur. Please welcome, a warm welcome to Jean-Marc. Jean-Marc is an all-time blockchain advocate, and he will tell you more a bit about his background, and I guess you guys enjoy, and don't hesitate to raise your hand and ask questions, and this is all made for that.
Please have a seat. So I guess the introduction has been made. Thank you, Arnaud. As you said, we wanted to have this short panel discussion following this technical presentation to have more discussion about the implication of tokenization in general for innovation, for startups who want to use it, and the finance in general. So I prepared a few questions for each of you, and of course, if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to raise your hand and interrupt. So my first question was for you, Jean-Marc. As we have seen with everything Cyril presented, was just a part of it, but although it's getting simplified, the access to tokenization is still quite technical today. In your opinion, what do we need today to democratize this technology and make it easier to access, to use for anyone who would like to use it for its startup, for its business project, etc.?
So I think first it's very good to see projects like that which are really doing the things and not only talking about them. So first, to move forward, I think it's important to try to really deploy a real system, real applications. Then, because I'm from the University of Geneva, an education point of view, we need also to educate people, and especially the students who already are learning programming, and then the programmers who have learned programming but who don't know blockchain yet. So we started the Certificate of Advanced Studies in blockchain development at University of Geneva. It's one of the first certificate in the world that teaches really at a in a very detailed way blockchain programming. And so, yes, education is also important to move forward.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add to that regarding the question?
Yeah, thanks. Just to add to that, I think for me, the vision I have of the technologies today is mostly you need to understand it, to know it, to be technologically sort of savvy, and normal people who would want to use it will make mistakes, will lose money, etc., or don't want to touch it. But ultimately, in the way I would see it in the future is, I would put it the other way around. How many of you, well, maybe those who are tech guys know, how many of you know how IP protocols work? You all serve the web, but you don't necessarily need to know what's under the hood. You just use it and it works. For me, the adoption, needs to go to that stage where normal people will use blockchain via interfaces, etc., that are easy to use for them without the need to understand what exactly works behind that, apart from knowing they need their private keys or whatever. So there is this interface problem. You obviously can go on the blockchain directly and hack at your smart contract if you know how to do it. But I mean, for me, there is still a way to go there. Right?
So yeah, so what you saw right now was, as some of you might believe, it's quite geeky, yes. But the idea where we're going right now is also to have a proper front end for people to interact with this set of smart contracts that is on the back. So the idea is that we're very close to have something where people can actually go to a web page, put the name of their company, put some relevant information such as the amount of shares they are tokenizing, some kind of documents that they want to attach to the smart contracts and hash it and attach to it, some legal documents, and then click on submit, and then everything happens. So this is the ultimate goal, and actually we're not that far. So what you saw is really the behind the hood, what's happening, from the back office perspective. But in the future, what you will have access to through the Mont Pelerin platform is exactly that, for anyone to be able to actually issue their own shares. Of course, you will always have to talk to a lawyer at some point, especially if you issue security token shares and whatsoever, because again, you're selling something to the public that is highly regulated, so you will have to have a proper prospectus, you will have to follow some kind of rules, especially in the way you onboard your future shareholders or your future contributors. But that again is, we slowly but surely the industry is going to deliver you that so that it will be usable by your grandma. Yes?
The internet really took off when Netscape was launched. You want to build a marketplace. Will you have a tool like Netscape to allow for this marketplace to launch?
Yes, at some point, yes. That's not really the first purpose of what we're doing. The marketplaces, of course, are extremely centralized in the way we run them today. But yes, I mean, at some point in the future, we're looking at that, yes.
Let me bring you the microphone.
Thank you for the presentation, Cyril, and I think it's a great system that you built there, and which could make it much more easy to do an ICO or token generation event and make it more transparent. On the other hand, we all know what happened with parity, and how can you make sure that people can rely on you? Do you, are you liable if there is something wrong with your code? Do you have certification in place that makes sure that the risk of bugs is very low?
Okay, so just to there's quite a difference with the parity. What happened is that parity was like a multi-signature smart contract to store ethers. Yeah, this is also quite different from what Mt Pelerin is doing. Mt Pelerin is really bringing to you real asset-backed type of securities. So the security tokens that we're issuing are actually real assets. They are entrusted somewhere. So that's why in this protocol that we've created, there is also certain ways to actually reverse transactions that were not intended to be as initially thought. There is a way to restrict the way you can transfer those securities, depending if you are or not in a state of whitelist, but also depending on the amount you're transferring, because of course, as a future bank, we need to document the AML, for example. We need to document the origin of the fund. We need to document the economical context of each and every customer. So that adds layers of protection to exactly what you named. In the case of parity, and this is something we do not do yet, which is like touching the crypto aspect, that of course is a big issue, because when you lose your crypto, there is no one you can call to have them back. And that is a pity for parity, but that is not something that in our case would touch us, especially because we're really focusing on the security tokens only, which are real assets behind, entrusted somewhere within the bank or within a financial intermediary, a custodian agent, whatsoever. So this is really the, I guess, the important aspect. Maybe.
Just without getting too technical on the legal side. But the token is just sort of a wrap for a share. It's not sort of an independent asset or asset-backed thing. It's just a virtual representation of the share. So if once you're registered as shareholder, tomorrow Ethereum can go away. You don't care, you're still a shareholder if you're registered. And so you're less dependent on the actual ecosystem of the blockchain itself. Ultimately, there are legal mechanisms as well to freeze transfers. And if someone hacked your wallet and stole some of those tokens, then you can prove that to the satisfaction. Either there might be a court process, or you bring proof that the transfer was illicit. That can be reversed, and there is a legal mechanism as well in place. If you look at the documentation, there is a regulation for that allows the board to actually restore your rights. And so, well, you're a shareholder. You're not just buying a token, so to speak. You're becoming a shareholder.
So when I buy a token, can I trust that the token is really connected to the share?
Well, actually, it's the other way around. You buy a share and you receive a token. You don't buy a token and receive a share.
So I can't just buy a token from someone who's a shareholder.
When you then, the secondary transaction post that, if you look at the articles of the company and the regulation for transfer, once you transfer the token, the issuer will look at the transfer and track that. So the moment you transfer, if it's a legitimate transfer, the transferee, or the transferor, ceases to be a shareholder, and the transferee can become registered. It's not automatic. He has to apply, pass KYC, identify itself, and then he's registered in the registry. For as long as the token is just traveling, so to speak, and no one requests to be registered, it's the same situation as for listed shares. There is a certain percentage of shares that are called dispo shares, where it's in the system somewhere, but no one actually claims to become registered. So if you buy that from someone, it's in your interest actually to get yourself identified with the issuer and get yourself registered to get your shareholder rights actually. Otherwise, you just have a token and you have a potential right to become registered as a shareholder.
My next question, that was actually for you, Fedor, is perfect to follow up on that, because I have been personally confronted with many times with this kind of question. All the structuring of a token so far hasn't been really tested in practice by the law and didn't really get its trial by fire, if we can say. So in your opinion, what should be done to cement the legal certainty required for this new ecosystem to move forward.
Debated whether you could transfer an uncertificated security that is a registered share via a token transfer on a blockchain. There are opinions that say, it needs to be in writing, which obviously when you do it on a blockchain, you don't have something in writing. There are theories that say you don't need this to be in writing, and there are multiple of those theories. I think from my perspective, and the CMTA perspective, and the CMTA has at least one legal opinion from a very prominent professor, it actually works without the requirement of a written form. And there are court precedents that confirm that a tripartite transfer essentially works without form, and that's what's at the root of this, so to speak. So it sort of says that there are court precedents, and there is a credible theory which allows you to certify that the transfer, once it's done and the new one is registered as a shareholder, that was valid. Now, you can obviously upgrade that, and there have been proposals to amend the law, etc. And I think in the next couple of months or so, the federal working group that is looking at that will issue a report where they will make proposals to sort of improve, in my view, legal certainty, not change the law, because my view and a number of others is that you don't need to change the law, it works now. I mean, we can improve certainty by tweaking certain provisions in the law, and that will probably come in the next months, years.
Yes.
I'd like to rebound to a previous answer regarding the transfer of the shares on the secondary market or secondary sale event when it's not blocked anymore. I would imagine that the rules will remain. You have to answer to a certain number of rules in order to become a shareholder. So the vetting of the buyer cannot be done by the seller. It's too complicated. You cannot expect the seller to go and vet everybody who might be interested in buying his shares. So how will that process work? And what happens to the shares if ultimately the buyer cannot become a shareholder?
A very good question. It's not for the seller to check. The seller can transfer it to any other wallet. It can be even another wallet of the seller that is just not yet linked to his identity or registered. The moment he transfers, the articles and the board regulation implementing the transferability essentially provide that the transferor ceases to be registered. And then he will apply to become registered. He will have to provide the documents. If he doesn't satisfy the requirements, the token will still remain in his wallet. He will not be recognized as shareholder. He still can transfer it onwards until someone can become registered. But ultimately, that's the same as happens for listed shares. You have to become registered, and you have to provide certain information. If you don't provide, although the information might be less, more limited for listed stock because you have to go through banks and securities deal. Here it's more evolved to make sure that we don't have AML risks. But yes, the buyer could be, if it's a terrorist and he applies to become registered, he will not become registered as shareholder. That's it.
Maybe the question was like, can you know in advance before buying if you can become a shareholder? Then you buy at some guys and apply it to shareholders.
Yeah, legally, actually there are multiple options legally. If you look at the blueprint and the idea, it's not specific to Mt Pelerin, but you have multiple options. You have the whitelisting angle, which some issuers do, saying that you cannot transfer except on a whitelisted address. That's sort of the basic option, and the buyer first has to register, become whitelisted, and then he can receive. It's not necessarily attractive because it renders it complex. The second layer is you still do whitelisting, but you can have delegated whitelisting. So you can say, I defer to that service provider to whitelist whomever on the multiple projects, and I sort of trust that their level of KYC is sufficient for me. That's the next level. Or you can have an approach where you don't have whitelisting, it's free transfer, The rules are clear, what you will need to provide. You will need to pass AML, KYC, etc. And you could do it in advance. You can do it in advance, then you're whitelisted, and that's it. You know exactly that you will be registered. But for Mt Pelerin,
yeah, sorry. Just to add on that, I mean, this is totally correct. I mean, we have chosen on our side to have a completely free transferability, yeah, and that was a business decision. But from a technical point of view, you can actually force the next person, the buyer, to actually sign first some kind of agreement first. You can force the future acquirer to actually pass certain requirements before he can actually become technically owner of this token and therefore becoming a shareholder. So technically there is nothing that would refrain us from coding such a behavior. The only reason why we didn't do it, as Fedor said, is that because it's not very appealing for people to actually have that kind of restrictions. So that's why we decided to go for something that is more free. People can transfer easily, but now to become the shareholder, they need to, of course, announce themselves, pass the KYC, and be accepted in order for us to grant them the two privileges attached to the fact that you own a share, which is the voting right and the dividend rights, right?
That will be a tricky question. Who first?
Thanks, Jan. I have a question about the economic consequence of the payment of a dividend from the board of directors' decision to allocate a dividend to the shareholders. I guess that decision, Arnaud, will be a public information at some point once the board of directors has decided to allocate the dividend to the existing shareholders, right? Correct?
Shareholders decide on that.
Say again?
The shareholders decide on that.
Okay, well, but once they have decided, once the dividend is allocated, and once it's been distributed, don't you? Is there a way you have envisaged the fact that some people just wanting that financial investment will be massive seller after that point, which would have a direct impact on the value of the share itself?
Yes, this is a fair question, and this is exactly what's happening in general on the stock market. That's something that you see. You have a premium that is always added right before the payment, and it gets discounted right after. I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel here. So the idea really of tokenizing startup shares is mostly not to solve the same issue that exists already on listed company, but it's actually to offer the possibility for investors to have an equity in a company that is becoming quite liquid. As compared to, I mean, like today, if you happen to invest in your brother's company, I mean, he wants to, create a pizzeria whatsoever, well, you can invest. But of course, the way you will get back your money and you will make some kind of profit over the investment you did is to wait for what? For the next investor to come to buy your previous position, or for your brother to do an exit and sell his business to someone else. And here the idea is really to start with the end. And it's really like for any company to actually be able to be as a listed company, having shares that are quite liquid for people to own and trade.
It has nothing to do with your question, but to go back to the liquidity. I think today you don't really have marketplaces in Switzerland, at least, in the US maybe, that can trade that kind of security, because you need either an exchange or an organized trading facility. But there are multiple projects in the pipeline, and therefore the sort of liquidity marketplaces or liquidity generating trading facilities will become a reality, in 6-9 months or something like that, maybe a little bit more. And for as long as the number of securities dealers, because I'm personally convinced that OTFs, or organized trading facilities, will be the first rather than an exchange, at least in Switzerland. And as soon as there are many, there will be a network effect, so to speak. The more they are, the more interconnected they will become, the more liquidity you will have. And you will not need to list shares and go the full step to an IPO. Still, once you get large enough, maybe you will want to do it. Because even if you are tokenized day one, in 10 years' time, maybe you will have changed 3 times of the blockchain technology, and then you will decide, oh, why not get listed? And you will get listed somewhere. One is not exclusive.
Just maybe to add a bit from the technical point of view, KYC and AML in the future is going to be more and more decentralized and reusable. You won't have to do KYC AML each time, so you could think of actually, yeah, I mean, there is maybe a period of time when it's still valid. And from a technical point of view, at least it's possible. So then after maybe the lawyers will say it's not possible, but technically it's possible. Then you could have certificates, and then you would have brokers saying that actually will tell you, okay, when you are going to try to buy a share of a company, saying that yes, given all what you have done previously from KYC AML, you are from this country and so on, you will a green light or a red light. It will be automated, and hopefully if the lawyers agree.
Well, actually, the lawyers are not necessarily the culprits, but theoretically, in theory, that's sort of the hope of many in the financial sector, that you would get a sort of account holder or client passport. You pass it once, you maybe have to renew it periodically, but then to open a new account with another custodian, for instance, or service provider, you just show that, confirm that it's current, and you're good. Because today, if you open a bank account, well, depending on banks, it can take up to, well, I don't know, 3-6 months. You can receive an account opening pack which is 190 pages long, half of which is irrelevant to you, but you still have to complete the various forms and start all over again. And then someone in compliance will check, ask additional questions. And if you change banks for some reason, you have to do it again. And it will be a slightly different set of forms. But ultimately, the adoption of that will depend on the regulators, of course. If the regulators sort of agree that you can sort of delegate KYC to a centralized service provider and recognize that mark, KYC passed, that will be the solution, but we're not there yet.
Just to add to that, as you said, on the Mt Pelerin side, we are already ready in the terms of technical side. That means that the way the whole bridge protocol is built is exactly that, with having that in mind, having decentralized type of compliance, meaning that, of course, today we are the only company doing the KYC, the AML, and all the compliance check. But of course, today we are the only oracle, let's call it this way, the compliance oracle. But in the future, of course, I mean, if Fedor allows us, we would love to have competition. I would love to have pretty much, I mean, today as a financial intermediary, we can do this KYC and AML even on behalf of someone. But I mean, tomorrow, any bank has this right to do this verification check. It's already recognized as a strong KYC check if you receive a banking wire from a Swiss banking institution. That means that the person is actually who is saying he is. So, I mean, there are already things where we can add the simple first layer of just checking the ID of a person and having someone that is authorized and many different actors authorized to actually KYC you. Yeah?
Thank you. Could you talk to us a bit about competition? So who do you see as your competitors currently? How do you think the traditional banking institutions will react to your offer? How do you see them evolving based on what you plan on doing?
Yeah, so as it comes to Mt Pelerin, we did not see any type of direct competition in the sense of the way we address it. So we're not looking at creating a crypto bank. We are creating a bank on blockchain. We're leveraging the blockchain technology in order to tokenize the entire balance sheet of the bank. That's really where we are going, and today most of the actors, at least looking at the banking sector, are more in the crypto bank aspect, meaning they look at the legacy world and adding some elements of the new world onto their offering. On our side, we really intend to bring the entire legacy world onto the new world and tokenizing the entire balance sheet and opening a whole new set of possibilities for customers to own things that they were not be able to own before, and also to own in fraction these assets. Now, if you look at the tokenization and security tokenization, there are plenty of actors, especially in the US. You have Securitize, Harbor, Polymath, and all those guys. But the way they address it also is slightly different from the way we look at it. Most of them they look at the issuance aspect only. They look at how can I issue compliantly a security token, and then how to address the full lifetime compliancy. Mostly it's done through a set of waitlists. They say, okay, either you're in or you're out. On our side, the way we designed the bridge protocol was to actually be way more refined, in a way that we can actually allow you to transact, for example, if we tokenize the Swiss franc, allow you to basically move value for like 50 francs from an address to another without being even KYC. And over a rolling period of 12 months, you could potentially go up to 500 Swiss francs. And then if you want to go above that, of course, you will have to pass the first level of KYC, and you have certain levels. We can even trigger pause on-chain in order to trigger so when you transfer, we can actually do a certain amount. We can actually make a pause to document off-chain the economical context of this transfer. Yeah, let's say you earn 5K a month, and suddenly you're transferring 1 million. That should ring a lot of alarms within the bank, and we have to comply to that, and we have to actually pause your transfer in order to get some more information from the economic context of it. And that's exactly what we're building here. Something that is actually a compliance layer on top of Ethereum to restrict the transferability of the tokens that are issued on our protocol based on a set of rules. It's a rule engine, it's a basic rule engine where we have generic rules and we have user-specific rules. And that's exactly the point of what we do, and also it's overseeing your entire position. That means that it's not looking at the silos per token issue, but it's looking at your entire position that you might have. Let's say tomorrow you have the MPS token, plus you have some fiat tokens, you have euro tokens, you have dollar tokens, you have fiat, you have Swiss franc tokens, plus you have some derivatives and this and that. It's actually summing the whole position of what you did, all your history, in order to decide whether or not you're allowed to transfer. And then if you're not, of course, you will have to document it in an off-chain way, and this is the rule as a bank. It looks very centralized, but this is also something that we're looking at distributing, not decentralizing, but distributed over several actors.
All right, thank you. Yeah, sure.
Yes. Then the next step, maybe for the bridge protocol, maybe try to get it pushed as an international standard. And in Geneva, we have actually, and we are working. That was what I was talking with you just before the panel. We have the International Telecommunication Union, and we are trying to standardize. So this kind of KYC ML aspects, other parts of the blockchain protocols, higher levels, and then I would encourage you to try to join also this ITU, because it's a big international organization. In Geneva, we have the chance to have many big international organizations, which are actually not in other places. And it's where we can make a difference compared to other territories. So I encourage you and other people in the ecosystem to also join these ITU initiatives. And then after, it's a matter of defending the protocols, technical protocols. At the moment, it's true there are not so many as advanced as Bridge. But then at one stage, you must work with them to be able to standardize this. And just to tell you, ITU has standardized 4G and 5G. You see, the thing that why our phones work in all parts of the world, it's thanks to the work of the ITU. So maybe they will have the bridge version of the ITU to be able to exchange tokenized shares.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Thank you. So for my question is, what are the off-chain components of your security token standard? So like if a company wants to issue their own shares, I understand that most of it is on-chain, but I'm sure that there are some off-chain components that companies should be aware of.
Who wants to answer that?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, again, all the documentation aspect is off-chain. That's the basic of it. All the rest is, we're trying to put as much as possible on-chain. Today we're also trying to work on the shareholder agreement that would work on-chain as well, like to restrict the transferability based on very simple shareholder agreements, just as the one already, with the tag-along, drag-along clause, etc. So that when you want to sell a company, you can bring all the shareholders with you, and the opposite, you know, if you are willing to exit, the minority can actually get with you, etc. And we're trying to enforce all those rules on chain. Of course, and we haven't finished everything yet. It's an ongoing work, but the basic, such as the identification of the customer, has to be done offline whatsoever. There is today no methodology to do it purely online. Yeah, I mean the background check for every transaction, if it goes to certain limits or if it goes above certain limits, and we have to actually conduct this documentation on the economical context of this transfer. Of course, it has to be done off-chain by an operator on our side. Maybe we hope at some point that we could distribute it to different operators that would be at the same level of regulation than we are, etc., etc.
Just to add two words. One, the MPS shares were not issued on blockchain. They were first issued, tokenized, and sold. And the second, to answer more specifically to your off-chain question, you can look at the CMTA website, the blueprint for tokenization. It has, I would say, almost everything you need off-chain to actually take a company, tokenize shares, you amend the articles, adopt regulations, etc., and then you have, then you have to code your token, and that's it. And you have to link the two.
Hi. So my question is about, like, do you have a plan, or basically maybe if you want that some parties will be able to trade your token, your shared token, outside of your platform? Is it something you want or plan?
Yes, actually, we do want that. As Fedor said at the beginning today, in Switzerland there are no exchanges that would be allowed to trade security tokens. We all know that SIX is looking at it, is looking at creating such an exchange, but we don't know exactly what they intend to do here. We know what we've heard, what we read on the news. We know that in the US they're already quite advanced. There are a couple of projects actually working on that. Some are very close to be live. Of course, I mean, at the end of the day, because it's a token, and if you have a pure decentralized exchange, a real one, and not a semi-decentralized one, this is something where it could be potentially traded as well. Today, there is nothing we could do to refrain people from exchanging on a peer-to-peer basis, but in an organized type of trading platform, today, no one has the necessary licensing to do so.
Oh, there are. Token Estate recently, yes, they released.
Sorry?
Token Estate, they released the platform for trading.
For trading security tokens, so that would mean that there are négociants in valeur mobilière, plus they would have some kind of organized trade facility license. That I don't know.
My point is,
I mean, I was not aware that in Switzerland one actor would have them.
My point is more basically, let's say that there will come more and more such these platforms. Yes, that's for sure. So, do you already have a plan how to basically trade your token in imaginary exchange platform?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing we will organize as a future bank is exactly that. So that's what we are aiming for, to create those marketplaces for people to issue the security token, so that even the pizzeria down there could actually tokenize their shares or raise debt in the form of in tokenized debt loan. I mean, this is something that we're looking at and that we want to deliver. This is the core of what Mt Pelerin is doing today. We're not there yet, of course. We're not licensed as such. Yeah, I mean, we'll see, because today there are several projects, especially in the US, that are actually addressing the security exchange licensing. And that's a big one to address. It's not something that you can improvise yourself, security token exchange anywhere on the planet.
Hello, I have a question. Why did you choose Ethereum blockchain? The main reason. And did you plan to use the sidechains?
Yeah, we are agnostic. We use Ethereum simply because today this is the most widely used platform in the world. This is where there is the most literature. We've been playing a lot with Rootstock. I don't know if you're familiar with Rootstock, which is also, I mean, they have copied pretty much all the capabilities of Ethereum, and they ported it onto a sidechain of Bitcoin. So it's interesting. I mean, I love Bitcoin, so for me it's something very interesting. We are agnostic. Today we run on Ethereum because simply it's today the most widely used platform by everyone. But in the future, if we see something that we believe it's better, or if we need to improve, we will always keep to ourselves this right to repudiate the smart contract, to reissue new ones on a newer technology, on a better technology, or to add new features, or to improve in general what we are doing, with having always in mind the customer.
I just wanted to, to continue this topic of platforms where the security tokens will trade. So, in your opinion, how this, I would say, ecosystem of trading will evolve? I mean, do you think that crypto exchanges will basically attract security tokens massively, or national exchanges like Sixt or Gibraltar Exchange, Malta Exchange will take care of it, or some other venues? What's the opinion of the future?
I don't have any crystal ball, but my personal opinion is that we will see some movement coming first from the private sector. I mean, today it's becoming a very big topic. It's also the goal of a lot of people today to actually deliver a security token type of exchange. I mean, we'll see. But today there is a will coming from pretty much everywhere in the world, which is coming as well as from the incumbent, as well as from new players that wants to enter this field. So this will happen, that's for sure. Now, when and how long, that I cannot tell.
Okay, one last question.
Yeah, let's coming back to tokenizing equity and the privacy issue. Let's say a Swiss SME wants to tokenize its equity, and then we saw earlier on the Etherscan that you can see all the addresses, on a public way. And so of course you can know the names of the shareholders, but you can know how many shareholders, and maybe if you go on the wallet address, you can see other tokens, and you can make, deductions and stuff like that. So let's imagine the Swiss SME doesn't want to show how many shareholders they have, for example. Is this something you have been, thinking about, or is this, would it be possible to incorporate this privacy option on the bridge protocol?
Yeah, there are actually several things that exist today. We haven't been focusing on it, to be honest, because there is a lot of things to address. It is part of the roadmap, it is part of the to-do list to include that kind of, let's say, privacy layers. We all know the zero knowledge protocol, and there are a few things that we can actually use. We haven't, to be honest, today played with it yet, simply because it's not the core, today it's not at the core of what we want to deliver at first. Yeah? What we do is all about transparency. So yes, in the future we will add this layer. Right now we are still at the stage where we're trying to add new features to bring a lot of new stuff onto what we do, and then at some point when we are happy with all the protocol as it is, then we will add this layer on top.
Yeah, so it's always difficult for a startup to think privacy by design first, because privacy maybe costs more. First you want something that the users can use and maybe sell it to the users. But usually, I mean, what we teach at university is trying to always try to think of security, which has been really taken into account, but also privacy. There is a new European regulation that applies also to many countries in the world, because if you serve European citizens, it's called GDPR. We have actually Jörn Ergut here in the room, who is a PhD student also at University of Geneva, working on this topic. And GDPR is a good incentive for companies to try to look at these privacy questions, privacy protection, because you can define, if you have a security leak, you can be fined up to 20 million euros and maybe 4% of your revenues. So then, after, it's easier to think about it.
Thank you very much. I suggest we stop here because the food is here. You will still have all the chances you want to ask us the questions while having a drink with us and eating the food. Thank you very much for your precious participation. It's been very interesting. And thank you.
Thank you.
Just one last thing. One last thing, I would like to invite you on January 21st in Geneva will take place the Geneva Annual Blockchain Congress, the first edition. We, Mt Pelerin, we will be there as exhibitors and also as speakers in the panels. And as participants, we have discount codes to distribute to anyone who would like to attend. So feel free to take a photo if you want to use it, and feel free to use it. That's it.